Good morning, Pamela.
Hey, good morning, Maria. How are you today?
Very well, thank you. About to finish the day here in UK, and you're starting there in California.
Yes, it is still early, but I've been at it for a little while, communicating with the corporate office out there.
Thanks for joining, and thank you, everyone. My name is Maria Dimitrova. I'm IMSM's Head of Business Development, Global Business Development, and also I happen to be a lead auditor on several standards, including ISO 45001. So if you have any more technical questions today, just please drop them in the chat box on social media. We are live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, and Pamela and I will take care and try to answer. And here with me is Pamela. Pamela, would you please introduce yourself?
Yes, so I'm Pamela D'Amato, and I'm located in the Southern California area, and have been with IMSM as of 2 years this month, and have had great success with ISO 45001 and a lot of our other ISO codes. But this is a very good subject that is a hot topic right now for employers.
Absolutely, for several reasons. Just before we start with the standard, let me mention that mics and cameras are disabled, but as I say, you can just ask questions via the chat boxes on social media. And alternatively, please contact marketing@imsm.com with any queries. So we'll take care of everything and answer as soon as possible, which in our case is nearly immediately. So this said, let's get started with ISO 45001, which interestingly enough, and that's the fun fact for today, it's actually the first international standard on occupational health and safety. Despite what people may think, because we all know OSHA's 18,001, etc., well, it's a fact. OSHA's was a British standard. It was a national standard. It was good, and it was worldwide used because there was nothing similar to OSHA's in terms of occupational health and safety, protection, etc. So, uh, another fun fact about ISO 45001 is that it has been designed to prevent, and that's information from the International Labour Organization reports, to prevent up to 99% of work-related injuries and in some cases, unfortunately, death. So very ambitious, very well designed, and aiming to enhance employee safety, reduce occupational risks, create safer working conditions, and as a result, improve our operations and reduce our costs. Just some metrics for you. According to the International Labour Organization, nearly 3 million people lose their life per
Hmm.
year
Wow.
because of, yeah, that's enormous. That's huge. And nearly 400 million people get non-fatal injuries, work-related diseases and sickness, including mental health. The good thing about 45001 is that it refers to all kind of potential work-related injuries or diseases. So, Pamela, anything you might like to add?
Yes, as a matter of fact, when I'm speaking to potential clients about ISO 45001, I mention that I know, as being an employer for 19 years myself, I owned my own company, multiple companies at once, as a matter of fact, that workers' compensation insurance premiums, along with medical health care insurance premiums, are costly. That is one of the major costs of doing business these days, is supplying that insurance. And by having this specific ISO 45001 certification in place, you can cut those insurance premiums by a lot. So by putting ISO 45001 certification in place for your organization, you can be a hero, because you can shave a lot of money going out the door for those premiums, in addition to saving on OSHA fines. So OSHA fines can be very expensive for an organization. And I've heard some of my clients tell me that they only pay 1/3 of what a non-ISO 45001 certified company would pay. That's a lot. That's a good savings. It definitely justifies the cost and the expense for the certification.
Absolutely. And this is a great thing about ISO 45001. It has been designed with the help of over 70 countries. So we know that the ISO as an organization has 166 country members, and nearly half of those proactively participated in the design of that standard, which means that we have probably the most extensive, not probably, not certainly, the most extensive set of good practice for organization to benefit from. And this practice aim to address occupational health and safety, but also boost our business, reducing absenteeism. Why? Because if we get less injuries, we get, absolutely, we get less absenteeism as well. So it also provides a clear framework uh, on how to work to protect health, to ensure safety. And the very good thing is it's an ISO standard. It can be easily integrated into already existing management systems. That's a great thing, actually, because once we know something about ISO, we just add specific elements to our previous knowledge. If we do not have any experience with ISO, we start with this one, and we can comfortably go further and add more if we need them.
If I could add something as well, Maria, I always say to people that I'm talking about, companies that I'm talking to that have never been through an ISO certification process before, it's a two-step process. The first step is you work with one of our ISO 45001 certified assessor/auditors, and they start with a gap analysis, meaning from that gap analysis, they find out what gaps you might have in your processes, and they help you implement the clauses to the standard of ISO 45001. You ultimately end up with the procedure manual after working with our assessor. And then also they prep you for the certification audit, which is the second step. So the two steps we offer, the package, IMSM offers both of them as one package, and it's not as daunting as a lot of companies think or people might think it is.
It is not as daunting as people think, basically because the principle behind ISO standards is quite simple. It's just something so simple and brilliant, thanks to its simplicity, as this Deming cycle, which describes it. The principle consists in doing what we say and saying what we do. How we ensure that it works? Because of the Deming cycle, which consists in planning for what we need to do, doing what we have planned for, check upon what has been planned, and in case we identify any deviations or any opportunities for improvement, act upon those. How? By planning what we need to do, doing it, etc., etc. So it is complex, but it's also simple. Simple things are beautiful things. In the middle of the dynamic cycle, we usually represent the concept of leadership. Why? Because implementing management systems should be a strategic decision. So top management must be involved, and all standards, all ISO standards, including 45001, they have their famous Clause 5 leadership, which establishes top management's responsibilities towards the system implementation. Some responsibilities obviously may be delegated, but at the end of the day, it's top management who are responsible for how the system operates. And this said, let's go ahead. Let's illustrate how much we may know about ISO 45001 with a quick scenario. I'm summarizing it for you. We are internal auditors. Actually, we have a system into place, and as internal auditors, we're invited to make sure that another department, in this case, our national corporate training center, operates according to the standard requirements, or in other words, they do what they say and all the time, and they say what they do. So we're in the kitchen, we notice a purple liquid stored with some food on a shelf. We ask about it. The manager says, oh yeah, no worries, everyone knows what to do. It's just a liquid. It shouldn't be there, but sometimes it is there. Anyway, don't worry. It's going to be okay, because we all know. However, we're internal auditors, and we see it and say, okay, I'm not quite convinced. What should I do? Well, ask a few more questions. We do it. And it turns out that not all the employees actually know enough details about the liquid, to put it mildly. So the manager says that, oh, no worries again. Risk assessment hasn't been needed, so yeah, we'll get it sorted. We carry on, no problem at all. What should we do in this situation? Have I summarized it well enough, Pamela, do you think?
Yes, absolutely.
And it happens, doesn't it?
It does. It's amazing on the things that do happen during a normal business day.
Yeah. So, as internal auditors, what do you think we should do? Investigate further, say that it is not okay, call the team manager, contact senior manager, or schedule a training course. Because we try to speed this workshop up for you to benefit from more time with us and potential questions, let me quickly explain, without wasting any more time, what should happen in here. When we audit internally, or we are being audited externally, the auditing principles, ISO principles, apply. There are 7 of those, and they include being impartial, keep confidentiality, being independent, etc., etc. And most importantly, as I say, being partial, trying to be biased. So, if it were I wouldn't raise a non-conformity. And Pamela knows very well that I wouldn't suggest any improvement, training courses or not. I wouldn't contact anyone from top management because I'm independent. That's my job. And I'd go with further investigation for a very simple reason. Pamela, remember my joke about the 2 capital sins in auditing?
Yes, you might want to mention those in case somebody doesn't know.
I will. So when we audit an ISO system, there are 2 capital sins, in my opinion. First of all, that would be declaring a non-conformity where there is none. And the second one, exactly as bad as the first one, is declaring a non-conformity, even if there is a non-conformity, without knowing why. only because it looks like something's wrong. We need to know why. If we don't, if we're not sure, if we don't have too much experience, whatever, please always go with further investigation. Standards are flexible. If you ask for more records, if you talk to people, talking is as important as writing, even more. So you'll find a trail that would suggest the right decision that you need to make. But again, if you're not quite sure, please go with further investigation. Let's say that I have a little bit of experience, so this scenario, the way it is presented, tells me that I can safely, based on the standard requirements and my own knowledge, declare a non-conformity. There are more than one reasons, but the one that most of the lead auditor or internal auditor should pick is the fact that no risk assessment has been carried out. Risk assessment is inherent to 45,001. It's essential. It's fundamental. We do
Yep.
risk assessment all the time. So this is my pick on a clause for non-conformity. Although, for instance, you can go with change management or communication, whatever. As I say, the standard is sufficiently flexible to allow you identify a potential flaw. Pamela, anything you might like to add?
I think one of the things that I would just have people think about that's considering this or haven't even considered it is they might be thinking that, well, I don't have any OSHA fines, or I don't think really that my people are at risk at all. You don't know what you don't know. So unless you actually start this kind of process and have specific areas identified, you're not going to know how many risks that an employee might face in your organization until you implement 45,001 ISO.
Absolutely. And now some new elements new to ISO 45001. As an ISO standard, it focuses on the organizational environment, as opposite to OSHA's 18001, which used to deal with internal issues, internal risks, internal problems, internal aspects. So now with ISO, we focus on every organization or individual that may affect us with their actions, and every single organization and individual we may affect with our actions. That would be our interested parties, and we focus on the environment, internal and external aspects, internal, cultural aspects, our internal knowledge, our internal procedures, the way we work. All these would be part of the internal aspects. External aspects, legislation, associations that might raise some concerns and we need to comply with, investors, insurers. All those business elements are relevant to our environment. So we, with 45,001, we are able to identify our context and the interested parties that operate within our context. So it is also process-based, not procedure-based, as was OSHA's 18001. And we've already illustrated how dynamic it is with the previous example. So if there is a flow, there are more than one way to find it, to identify it, assess it, and resolve it. And it also considers both risks and opportunities, because risks may lead to opportunities. That's always great when we have risk assessed, identified, assessed, analyzed and used as an opportunity. But sometimes we forget about opportunities. We are kind of seeing a shiny opportunity and forget about analyzing it in case it hides any risks to us.
Maria, if I could mention something as well, is you kind of touched on this a few minutes ago. If a company does not have ISO 9001 in place, which is a base for every kind of company, no matter what they do, how they do it, ISO 9001, which is quality management system certification, they could easily do ISO 45001 and ISO 9001 together, or ISO 45001 with ISO 14001, which also dedicates itself to environmental management systems. So that works hand in hand with ISO 45001 because it deals with the environment for not only your employees, but also for your carbon footprint. So these two go hand in hand together as well.
We have quite a lot of customers, as you know, Pamela, that do integrated systems, and certainly most of them have started integrating all three of them: 9001, 14001, and 45001. So no matter what your current situation with regards to ISO standards might be, you may approach it via implementing directly 45001 or integrating it into existing systems. If you're new to ISO 45001, you need to follow this short list. Maybe starting with an analysis of your organization context and interested parties, establishing the scope of the system, where we want to go with the system, set our policies and objectives, define the frame time, and as Pamela says, working with IMSM is really helpful because we're able to help you define that so valuable asset called time frame. We excel in helping organizations get themselves well organized to address their conformity with ISO standards. And also, we excel in helping organizations determine any competencies, any resources they may need, because as Pamela has just mentioned, working with us starts with a good, in-depth, articulated gap analysis. Pamela, would you like to add anything to what I've said?
Well, I think when somebody doesn't know what a gap analysis is, it is our company actually gives you a gap analysis checklist to be prepared for that meeting. And if you don't have much of what's on that list, that's not a problem. If you have a couple of those things, that's not a problem, because it's our assessor's job to provide what you don't have and that you need for this ISO 45001 implementation and procedure manual and certification. So it's never a problem. In fact, people might say, I just new in business, I don't know if this is the right time, or I'm small, I'm a very small organization. Anyone can go with any of our ISO codes. You don't have to be a large business or a medium-sized business. And we work with startups all the time because of the fact we can help you develop your process. And you might as well do that from the beginning as opposed to 2 years into the process and then having to go back and change things. So I always recommend, even with startups, to come on board immediately, and we'll help you do it the right way the first time.
Absolutely, because organizations grow sustainably while they grow as well their management systems. It's much easier. Don't wait to grow bigger to get it done. So there are as many benefits as organizations. That's what I like to say when I'm asked about benefits. But let's focus on a few that are quite common when you talk to customers and organizations that operate ISO 45001 compliant management system. So uh, they can see the benefit of a better health and safety culture, and on top of that, very important to the US market, it also helps organizations address potential inequalities. So in clause 5, which is again leadership, there quite a good description of what can be done thanks to the standard to address any potential issues in terms of inequalities. Why is this then that important? It is important because it's all about the image. So here in Europe, in the UK, young people, my daughter's generation, 20 something year young ladies, do not buy a very famous uh, lingerie brand, internationally recognized, an American one. Basically because it is famous for not treating well their employees. It's a question of mm, pride not to buy that specific brand. And the UK is a nice market. So a few years ago, that brand was quite close to closing its UK branch. So another benefit from implementing ISO 45001 is regulatory compliance and contractual compliance as well. Some of your customers may implicitly or explicitly require demonstrating equal opportunities or demonstrating health and safety culture and procedures. So ISO 45001 gives you that as well. So on top of that, it improves your personnel morale for a very simple reason. If people feel safer, they work better. And Angela and I like very much highlight that there is an additional benefit from implementing this standard, and this is the fact that it can be certified.
You know, Marie, if I could just add, and I appreciate your daughter in her age and being conscientious in that area, but I'm certainly not in my 20s, but I will not financially support, any way support a company or an organization that is not on the up and up and that doesn't do things the right way and the correct way. And especially manufacturing overseas or here, even in the United States, that do not take the steps to be able to be working on a top level. And that means, you know, age of their employees in the factories, cleanliness in the factories. There are a lot of things that go into keeping a safe environment and doing things the right way, legally.
Absolutely, as you know, here in Europe, the equal opportunities issue is not that much of an issue. So we have a different approach. But I was absolutely amazed with seeing that many young people already demonstrating such a good attitude towards some values. One would say, yeah, they need to grow up and then they will see it. They already see it.
They do.
They do.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So, with regards to certification, that's a huge benefit. Why? Because it actually gives you the opportunity to display a stamp, a certificate that says that you are operating in conformity with the standards requirements. So, you get this international recognition, your stakeholders trust, young people buying from you, And it also brings in continual improvement, because when you decide to go with an external certification, third party independent certification, what happens is that your certification partner will visit you every single year to make sure that you keep up to the highest level of best practice. So I bet you'll be prepared for their visit. So the fact that you get certified every year helps you improve, doesn't it, Pamela?
Absolutely, Marie. And if I could add something, you kind of touched on this. When you have that ISO 45001 certified stamp on your website, it makes you money. Not only does it allow you to be on a higher level and level up your competitors, you're above them for those that don't have that. And also, Harvard studies have shown, Maria, that for every $1 that they spend in this category, they see a minimum return on investment of a $6 to a $16 ROI to that $1. So that stamp on a website, whereas you might be getting passed up by somebody right now that might want to do business with you or contract with you, or I deal with contractors, very large companies that do residential and commercial building. And in order to obtain very large deals or even small deals, I know that there are companies that are looking for that stamp, that ISO 45001 certified stamp on a website. And if they don't have that on their website, they're not going to contact them for a bid.
Yeah, having the certification doesn't guarantee getting a contract, but not having it may well lead not to be even considered for a tender.
Absolutely. And I say to a company that I'm talking to is that's business that you don't know you're losing because they never contacted you.
Absolutely. By the way, here in Europe, it's much easier to calculate potential losses, because public and private tender currently state requirements for ISO certification. So either you are ISO certified or you can't bid for that tender. So upfront, you can already see how much business you can lose if you're not ISO certified. So this is kind of more visible for us here rather than the States, where applies what you say, Pamela. Organizations just don't know how much business they've lost.
Absolutely. It's so good for us to be able to communicate that to people.
So the only success factor, in my opinion, that's for the system to work, that's top management's involvement. Famous clause 5 in all standards, very important in 45001, slightly more expensive. Why? Because it adds to top management's responsibility, consultation and participation of workers or their representative, and that's logical. These people are on the factory floor ground. They know the business. If we create a culture for them to tell us what may go wrong, we make money because they transfer knowledge. So it's beneficial to us to consult our workers, employees, interested parties, even customers. All those people who work with us, they know us and they can help with their input. So, as I say, there are quite a lot of requirements to top management with regards to the system implementation. Some of those can be delegated, other need their direct involvement. But at the end of the day, delegated or directly managed, all responsibilities belong within top management. That's their responsibility. So, Pamela, anything you might like to add in your experience?
Well, I always kind of bring back to a company. why wouldn't you want to better your organization and make a healthier environment by putting something like ISO 45001 in place? Because when an employee comes to you, excuse me, for employment, they're assuming that you have their best interest at heart. That includes safety. But unless you actually know the specific clauses of 45,001 that gives you the highest level that's, excuse me, recognized internationally as being the highest level of safety that you could put in place for your employees, it just makes dollars and cents, especially as I mentioned, cutting and shaving your workers' comp health insurance, workers' comp premiums down by a lot, and medical health care premiums down by a lot. It just doesn't make sense not to put ISO 45001 in place as an employer, as I was for 19 years.
Well, that's an impressive point, Pamela. And let me add something as well. Organizations need to offer safe and working environments, and this is a question of finding good people to work for them. Competent people, competent workers. In the UK, we are at the lowest unemployment rate in ages 3.8%. We practically don't have unemployment.
That's great. Wow.
Do you know how many efforts an organization needs to put into place to get competent people to work for them? So, a good environment is a must for a person to join a new company. And with this great resignation phenomenon, we lived in the US, UK, some Scandinavian countries, generally speaking, people after the pandemic massively changing jobs, leaving without any particular reason. So organizations started being quite drained of their usual workforce. They need to do something to retain their workforce. It's going to go elsewhere.
Sure is.
So let's go with a third-party auditor and say what they will decide about the scenario we have here. So we're having lunch with the auditor, and in the canteen, the auditor says that there is a text announcing that if anyone needs to file their complaints, they could use the box below. No box. So after the break, the auditor talks to the manager, and the manager says that, oh yeah, there has been a change in the procedure. Now instead of the box, we use emails, etc., etc. So the auditor investigates further, and it turns out that since the new system came into force, there have been 2 complaints. So the auditor investigates further. What happens? Well, the manager states that everything has been done in order to improve the system. What does the auditor do? First of all, no suggestions at all. No interferences with the customer. No personal opinions. Conformity, non-conformity, or something else. Well, I would go with further investigation for a very simple reason. I don't think that there are enough grounds to file non-conformity in here for a very simple reason. There might be a good reason for the box not to be there. Someone may just forgotten to take off the announcement. What I need to know is as well if the system has achieved an improvement. How would I do such a thing? Well, checking all the previous records for previous periods. I may find that there have been more complaints or fewer complaints. I don't know. Also, it may be quite what the manager says, and people just don't go to the canteen any longer. I'll talk to them. So I'll investigate further. Basically, because I see uh, a text saying that there is a box and I can't see the box. I'm not going to file a non-conformity. Let's be practical. We can't just decide that something's wrong basically because we see something and there is an element missing. So we shouldn't assume by default that there is something wrong. We should go and find first the conformity, and then if there is anything wrong, go with a non-conformity. ISO auditors look for conformity first and foremost. Okay, so let me just jump across. Excuse me. Pamela, can you take over this one, please?
Sure. When auditing for ISO 45001, reasons to audit: determine conformance to requirements, determine the effectiveness of the system, improve the system, meet regulatory requirements, meet contractual requirements, and for marketing and reputational purposes. And then for audit principles, these are really good as well: integrity, fair presentation, due professional care, confidentiality, independence, evidence-based approach, and risk-based approach.
Thank you, Pamela. You're a lifesaver. So here we have systemized the audit principles for you, basically to make you feel confident that you know how audits should be conducted, internal and external audits as well. And again, there are quite a lot of reasons to audit, but we have summarized the main reasons for you: regulatory requirements, contractual requirements, and elevating your reputation, your prestige for marketing purposes. It's more business for organizations, indeed. Okay, and we are nearly there. How can we manage the implementation? Let's simplify it, say, in 5 steps. Hazard identification. Then we need to identify who may be harmed and how. Then we carry out risk assessments. Risk assessments are essential to ISO 45001. Remember our scenario. So we document our findings, and this is very important because the last step would be assess, review the findings, and plan for new actions if necessary. If we don't document, we not that easily it is not going to be that easy to assess and review our findings and plan for new activities. So with regards to risk assessment, my suggestion, look everywhere. Routine and non-routine activities, routine and non-routine situations. Keyword routine. Why? Because when we perform day in and day out an activity, we may neglect looking deeper at it. Routine activities normally condition more risks to you, because if something's new, it's human nature. we look at it, assess it, identify anything that may go wrong. When it comes to something we always do the same way, we assume that we do it well. Assuming is our worst enemy. Human factors. Well, I always joke about machines not be able to fail on their own. Nowadays, it's quite right. Actually, machines, equipment, physical or numerical, they have safety systems and fail to protect the machine from doing anything wrong. When a machine doesn't work properly, I'm inclined to have a look at the human factor as well. So please do not neglect human factors. New or changes to hazards and risks. That's very important because when we have a new risk or new hazard, we evaluate it properly. But when we make some modification to existing hazards, existing risks, we may assume that there are not too many things to be concerned about it. Again, assumptions. Please try not to go for assumptions. Then we need to plan for possible emergency situations, possible issues with staff and stakeholders, and very important, changes to our organizational knowledge. What do I mean? I mean that when new people come on board, they may come with sufficient knowledge about risks or hazards or whatever, but they may not. So we need to identify any gaps in their knowledge and make sure that they are properly trained. If people move on the ladder or go to another organization, we may well be left with less knowledge. So we need to reevaluate what's left after our personnel leave our premises. So please be aware of how important knowledge might be. Pamela, anything that you might like to add?
No, other than the fact that I think that, if somebody's considering just even asking some questions of us, or if they would like a proposal, no matter what their thoughts are, we can send information, documentation, some of the information that I mentioned regarding OSHA or workers' compensation or medical health insurance premiums going down. We have it all, and we'd like to talk to you. We'd like to hear from you. And especially if you would like a proposal. And timing is good right now, Maria, because we do have like half the year left. Now, we don't always say, we're going to be able to get you completed, the implementation completed and the certification completed all within a specific period of time. But there is a good possibility that you might be able to, if you get into the IMSM queue now, that you might be able to have this completed by December 31st of this year. And you could write off 100% of the expenses off of your income for this calendar year for 2022. So it's, as a business owner, as I was for 19 years, I wanted as many tax write-offs as possible. So not only do you get the tax write-off of the expense off of your income for your business, but you get all the benefits of it as well. So I would love to have anybody contact imsm.com. Let us know how we could help you, what questions that you might have. And like I said, timing is of the essence right now, right, Maria?
Right, nice suggestion, Pamela. Thank you. It's a good New Year resolution, starting with a system implemented and certified.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't see any questions today, Pamela.
Okay. Well, hopefully we covered a lot in this session, so we might have been able to answer a lot of them.
Hope so. So
Yeah.
let's say thank you to everyone. Thank you, Pamela, for inviting me to join these talks. Always pleasure talking to you.
Same here, Maria. Thank you, and I hope you have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you, you too. Caroline, can you please now take over?